So with that, I am going to keep us on time and pitch it over to our next segment. So some of you were online. We're online for when we had our last economy recent presentation of a new study on the key growth opportunities areas of the bioscience core and greater Phoenix region. So in that report, Teconomy identified 3 areas poised to make giant gains, and those were precision oncology and medicine, translational neurosciences, and digital health, wearables, and med tech. So anyone familiar with the roadmap has heard about our prowess in the first 2 areas for years, but the 3rd area is relatively new and perhaps somewhat unknown to a statewide audience. So yet it's an area where we really have tremendous growth and opportunities in the year ahead. So thanks to the collaboration with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, we're going to explore today what's driving growth in this area. And we're pleased to have my good friend, Wes Gullett, partner at Nexus Strategy Group, and he will lead lead with the Partnership for Economic Innovation. So Wes, that's 2 hats you're wearing in this panel. And I'm going to hand it over to Wes to moderate the panel discussion. The panel will feature 3 local experts. Number 1, we have an entrepreneur, and her name is Ayushi. I'm going to make sure I get the name right. Ayushi Patel, co-founder and CEO of Sensen, a brain health screening company. A large company innovator, Alex Tesmer, who is Associate Director of Innovation at BD, a leading global med tech company. And an academician, Dr. Mark Van Dyke, Associate Dean of Research and Professor of Biomedical Engineering at the University of Arizona. So each has graciously volunteered to be with us today to share details and perspectives of their unique role in this sector. So Wes, I'm going to hand the reins over to you.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for the nice introduction. And welcome to our panel discussion.
Wes, we lost your audio.
Am I back? Can you hear me now? All right, perfect. Thank you, Heather, for the great introduction. For the purposes, and welcome to our panel discussion. For the purposes of our discussion today, we're going to use the term medtech and to describe this area. So let me define medtech as it relates to what we're going to be discussing today. Medtech includes medical devices, wearables, sensor technology, implantable devices, the integration and analysis of data to provide better outcomes for patients, and enhancement to the process of patient care. So just about everything you can imagine is connected to med tech, and we'll have a rousing discussion about that. Now, I want to give you a little context around where we've been on our med tech journey. With Kathleen Lee from the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, the Partnership for Economic Innovation established the WareTech Applied Research Center in 2018. And we opened our center in Park Central in 2019. At the WareTech Center, we've assisted 22 projects with funding and expertise, and we just submitted 8 new projects for this year's funding. So that will bring us to 30. Altogether, we've provided more than $6 million of public sector support and a total of more than $12 million in applied research activity in Arizona, just at the WareTech Center. These applied research projects have resulted in products that range from a significant exit for one product to several products reaching the market and creating revenue for the startup companies or even mature companies. In addition, ASU created the Perform Science and Technology Center, and the U of A has announced CAMI, which is going to be a fantastic opportunity for our state. And the bioscience, the Phoenix Bioscience Core has expanded tremendously. So MedTech in Arizona, as was mentioned before, has experienced liftoff. So we're really excited about talking about this with our panelists. And today's panel, we have 3 great panelists that you've been introduced to. Our first panelist is Alex Tesmer from BD, and we're going to go through a series of questions with our panelists, and then we're going to break into a group discussion. Alex and the BD team have been intricate partners in our medtech activities here in the community. And we really want to thank Alex for joining us today. So Alex, can you tell us briefly about what you do at BD?
Sure, Wes, and thank you for hosting this panel and for inviting me. Great to meet everyone online here. So I am an associate director in ideation, which is basically our innovation department, where most of my job is focused on working with physicians to determine their problems and unmet needs. And then what we do is we take that unique unmet need that's been identified and thoroughly researched. I typically work with a project team to see if there's a suitable path forward to develop a safe and effective solution. We will also dive deep into the business opportunity, determine if the idea is a strategic fit within our company. And so overall, what's great is right in our backyard here in Tempe, Arizona, we own currently a couple buildings. We're leasing one large building, and we have a team of associates that are working every day to create minimally invasive medical solutions for clinicians to transform patient care. And to be specific, we focus on medical device innovation that help patients with cancer, peripheral vascular disease, and end-stage kidney disease.
That's awesome. And so BD is doing incredible innovation and research right here in the Valley. So why did BD set up this operation here, and what will make it impossible for you to leave?
Impossible for us to leave. I'll save that one for last. So first of all, BD consists of 8 business units, each which runs its own research and innovation team. One of those is us right here in the backyard, BD Peripheral Intervention, based in Tempe. And how we come about is actually through a series of mergers and acquisitions. So specifically, we actually started off in a garage in Tempe, Arizona, where a doctor got together with an engineer to work on with this material called Teflon to create vascular graft and patches. And so we were known as IMPRA back in the day. But in 1996, Bard bought us, and subsequently BD bought Bard in 2017. So we went from this company of doing grafts and patches to now a company consisting of thrombectomy devices, atherectomy devices, angioplasty balloons, drug-coated balloons, stents, covered stents, ports, and biopsy needles, and we're expanding in different adjacencies as we speak. So I believe, going to that last question, what would make us impossible for us to leave? Well, I think what would help is we moved our corporate headquarters from Franklin Lakes, New Jersey to Arizona, but that's not going to be a small lift.
Well, we want you to stay, and so we want to do everything we can to help you. And Ayushi, that's pretty cool. We might see you as a company as large as BD someday. So that's pretty exciting. What do you think the Phoenix area needs to do to attract more med tech research and development?
Yeah, I think, really what we need to do here is make it stickier for our startup and small med tech companies to stay in Arizona. I believe that, naturally, if you can get these small startups and that stay here, that research and development would then continue to flow out of those companies as they grow. We heard earlier that, hey, for companies to be successful and grow, they have to have research and development, they have to have innovation. So Arizona needs to find ways to keep them from moving out of town and staying in our state. We need to figure out, in my opinion, how to build capital and infrastructure to retain these companies. One interesting initiative is supporting the Arizona Health and Innovation Trust Fund. This was established here in Arizona. It's an endowment model, which once fully funded will yield returns on an ongoing basis. So the great thing is this is established already under Arizona State Treasurer's Office, and I think it could potentially yield benefits to Arizona today and for generations to come, delivering both economic and health impact. But, ultimately, it's how do we build that capital and infrastructure together as an Arizona community?
What do you think the benefits of having a company like BD in the community, and having a strong med tech presence, how does that benefit our community as a whole?
Yeah, I believe by growing the med tech sector in Arizona, that this is going to increase the employee talent pool, increase our ecosystem and the overall economy. So, as you get that talent pool, one med device employee might go to another med device company and so forth. Well, you start building that talent within. Also, you bring those higher, salary wages here. You get more expertise, and I think that will overall stimulate our economy.
Great, Alex. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. Now I want to switch to Ayushi. Ayushi Patel is our next panelist, and Ayushi relocated Sensen from Irvine, California to the Valley. And welcome, Ayushi. What got you into this field of med tech?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me today. And I should say I'm officially at 1 year and 2 months of my move from California to Arizona. So I can say that the summers are not as bad. So it should not be a hindrance in recruiting going forward. But so just as a brief history of Sensen, we're 3 founders, Trevor, Andy, and myself. We're all biomedical engineers. And we were doing clinical neuroscience research, saw this big need of just lack of quick access to brain data. And we saw it as a bit of technological problem, habituation problem. And as we thought through it more and more, interviewed a lot of doctors, we figured out that, hey, it is a problem that can be solved with time and effort. It just needs the right resources, education, and right clinical use cases. So we pursued down that path. But that was the original story. And then a couple of years ago, I had this bike accident where I actually suffered a concussion. And it came full circle because I was in urgent care and I just described to them what happened to me. And they said, oh, you have no issues. You're clear to go. And the rest of the week, I genuinely struggled to stay awake, or I couldn't ride the car. And it hit me that, hey, somebody who understands this space is this scared of what is about to happen, what happens to people who don't. And that's what motivates us as a team to continue making brain data more accessible. And we're hoping to do that first in Arizona, and then grow from here on.
Well, and you moved your company from Irvine to Arizona. What attracted you to the Grand Canyon State?
Yeah, so I'll give a brief history, and I was making notes of this because I was like, I don't want to forget any key points. So what first brought us here was a strategic investment from Honor Health in our seed round. So this was Q3 2022, and they led our seed round. And that was our first inlet into the Arizona ecosystem. And they guided us to all these resources, the Flint Foundation, Arizona Commerce Authority. We were very fortunate to apply for the Arizona Innovation Challenge Award and get it in our first time. So that was another entry point into the local ecosystem and just meeting other existing companies and some incredible people who've been doing a lot of work in the medtech ecosystem. And then just building on top of that, we were also very fortunate to receive the VERTEC grant, which I'm sure we'll touch upon at some point. And it really, we really saw ourselves growing within this ecosystem along with the state. So what I mean by that is there's a huge spirit of collaboration. We work with hospitals, universities on multiple different grants, and we could envision ourselves that how do we set up different pilots that are funded by government grants or are industry sponsored by our investments. And how do we set up manufacturing in the future? How do we launch our early go-to-market strategy, test it, and then go nationwide? So just having that clear vision helped a lot. And also it helps that there's tons of sports culture in the state of Arizona. Some of the best sports performance centers are in Arizona. So there were just so many factors that the vibe was very strong and we just could not deny it. And we love the state. So I moved here officially, love being here. I think it would be hard to move back, but that's why we're here.
We want you to stay. And trust me, everybody who's listening, we want Ayushi to stay. So what's the challenge to scaling up your business here in Arizona? What do you think as you look to the future?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of success going from 0 to 1 and 1 to 10. And then as we go from 10 to 50, which is getting through FDA, setting up manufacturing, setting up the next set of larger pilots and building up to a Series A company. The next challenges we see are how do we set up all operations as locally as possible? So by that, I mean, We have a hardware product as well. So setting up all those manufacturing practices, quality testing practices, IEC testing practices. There's just all these little details that there's some things the state just doesn't have yet. So then our challenge is, okay, do we work with somebody who is adjacent to the state? Can we find those resources that are still available? And I know we've talked about that in our meetings, that we're looking for specific kinds of IEC testing sites. So that's one. But the other challenge is that we've been able to successfully leverage some of the incredible non-dilutive opportunities that the state of Arizona has. So how do we ramp that up into actually tapping into more federal awards with additional institutes, bring those federal awards in and grow the clinical operations in the state? So just finding out new collaborators on top of our existing collaborators and scaling from that. So I think that's our next challenge, going from 10 to 50, if you will.
And I've enjoyed working with you at the WearTech Center. You're a WearTech project. Tell us how the WearTech Center has helped you.
Yeah, so I love working with you, Kathleen, and the rest of the team. I would say the biggest strengths of the WearTech grant is the concept that you must have matching awards. So it incentivizes the companies to go seek out the funds, private funds, and then match it with the public dollars. So it's not just the public investment itself. So there's some sense of accountability from the get-go that you are going to commercialize that project. So I think that's it's a much better concept in terms of grants. And then what I liked when we applied for the grant, there was a heavy focus on commercialization. So you guys did not want a technology that is going to be in R&D phase for 5 to 6 years. You wanted something that has a 2-year turnaround time. So that forces the companies to think about, how do you do different pilots? How do you get out there, get the early feedback? So on the technical side, that has been great. In terms of like more organizational things, the flexibility of the award also is incredible, because we did not have the NSF SBIR when we first applied for the WearTech project. So now that we have both of those awards, having the flexibility to work with your team to adjust the budgets and some of the milestones, and just having the flexibilities puts us at ease of mind as we have multiple grant awards and we go through that process. So yeah, I highly recommend. I've recommended some of the other founders that are out of state to come apply to this grant in Arizona and move here. So we'll keep doing that advocacy more and more.
Great, thank you so much. And our third panelist is Mark Van Dyke from the University of Arizona. Mark is the Associate Dean and is with us today. So Mark, tell us, what do you think is the growth opportunity for MedTech in the community?
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Great to be here with everybody. I sit over top of a research enterprise that spans across engineering, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to couple more of what we do more broadly across engineering. We tend to think about MedTech as in the domain of biomedical engineering, which, as when you introduced me, that's my home department. But I've learned in the position that I'm in that there's a lot of engineering and science and just broadly across STEM fields that can be brought into the healthcare or medtech space. We have really interesting work going on in semiconductor manufacturing, as a lot of people know. There's a lot of great opportunities there. AI, software engineering, and even some of our mechanics people. We tend to work more in areas of, national security, national defense, aerospace kinds of stuff. But there's a lot of tough challenges in healthcare in terms of things like fluid mechanics, et cetera. So I think there's a great opportunity for us to couple more broadly across engineering and science in the healthcare space.
There was some questions earlier about, the tech transfer and how that's all working. And I know that you've got some ideas on that, but I hate to put you on the spot.
Some strong opinions. No, I knew there was going to be questions about this.
So can you tell us a little bit about that, what you see as the future for tech transfer?
Yeah, I would say we're very, very good at the transactional pieces of technology transfer. The Tech Launch Arizona here at the University of Arizona, or TLA, they do a fantastic job, best practices up and down the whole operation. But tech transfer out of a university it has a lot of social and behavioral science aspects to it as well, which kind of goes underappreciated. In my own opinion, as to why we're seeing this decrease really is twofold. It's sort of interesting because we're seeing record research expenditures at the university. Last year we hit $955 million in the total research enterprise at the University of Arizona. And I can tell you in engineering, we will almost have doubled in research expenditures in the time that I've been here. So we've got this interesting period now, the last 4 or 5 years, where research is increasing. Some of the numbers that we saw in the report was that NIH funding is increasing, but tech transfer is decreasing. Why is that? One, I think, and it's really kind of inside baseball stuff. You wouldn't, people who are on the outside, not in the research enterprise at a university, wouldn't notice this, but one, a lot more regulation. And I don't think that that's a big issue, but things that are new and things that take time and sort of knock faculty off their focus is a challenge. And there's been a lot more regulations, especially with regard to conflict of interest in the last couple of years. But I think the big thing, and we're really digging into this at the U of A, we've got a couple of studies ongoing. We're actually going to work collaboratively with ASU and NAU on this as well, is how do we couple the research enterprise to the technology transfer enterprise? And we were looking at this specifically in engineering, and people might be surprised to learn that the technology transfer enterprise isn't coupled to the research enterprise in ways that you would think. It's not coupled in ways that's driven by the Bayh-Dole Act, for example. We've had 44 years of the Bayh-Dole Act, and things have gotten a little bit perturbed from the ideal virtuous cycle that the Bayh-Dole Act is intended to foster. So I think a combination of a couple of things have led to those outcomes.
So tell us, in the future is pretty bright, even with, as we overcome these challenges. CAMI is coming to Phoenix. Tell us about that. And I know you're excited about CAMI coming.
So the Center for Advanced Molecular and Immunological Therapies, or CAMI, CAMI. So it'll be a state-of-the-art research building. It'll be located on the Bioscience core campus. It will house state-of-the-art facilities and will be a huge attraction for new faculty coming in. There's also plans to build a bit of an incubator in that space as well. But I think importantly, what it really does is it allows us to have a place where you can develop a culture or a mindset, right? It's a little challenging on a campus as large and diverse as we are here in Tucson to really kind of like onboard people and to target certain types of individuals that you like to hire. We want to hire entrepreneurial scientists and clinicians and engineers, right? And to be in that environment, to have those facilities, and to be able to recruit the types of folks who can operate within the medtech ecosystem, I think is going to be a huge advantage.
It's going to be really, really exciting, and we can't wait till it gets going. So now let's switch a little bit. There were some questions about, can you make enough employees? Are you guys doing workforce well enough? I think that all of that is happening. But I want to talk to everybody, because one of the things in the report that talked about how do we increase our stature, how do we actually get those high value growth opportunities, and how do we scale these businesses up? It pointed to networking and things like that, which seem pretty simple, but they're hard. Let's talk as a group about collaboration and how you see that happening. And I'm going to start with Mark. What do you see as the value of collaboration, and how do we need to do more of it? And then we'll go back through the group.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. We as universities, I think, haven't done a good job in collaborating with the outside world. Universities are unique places. The people that live and work inside universities are very unique. I spent 10 years in industry, so I've seen both sides of it. We don't think first and foremost about things like economic development. We think about, things that academics care about, publishing papers and graduating students getting the next grant, right? And all of that can happen within the silo of a university. But we've been making a concerted effort to work more with our economic development partners, the ACA, GPEC, even local and regional with the city of Tucson and Pima County. But you have to have that intentionality. You have to embrace use and user inspired research. As an academic, you say you want to solve problems, but at the end of the day, what is it that you value? Well, we're motivated to value papers. We're motivated to value the next grant. But how do we value job creation or new products that might come from our research? We need to do a better job of incentivizing faculty to value those things too.
Ayushi, what do you think about collaboration and is this is Phoenix a good place to collaborate in your experience here in the last 14 months?
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic place to collaborate. What I feel can be done. So let me give some context. So Orange County had been great for cardiovascular, diabetes, and certain realms, but it wasn't as good for us in terms of neuroscience. Then as when you look at Arizona, there's just incredible amount of neuroscience, neurology research that happens here. So for us, the resources we can tap into are exponentially more. So with that preface, what we've found through the VeriTech Award is the collaboration between health system, university, and industry can be very powerful when set up correctly. So what does that mean? That is less bureaucracy. Can we get through a lot of red tape? Because last thing any industry or co-founder wants is be stuck in paperwork for months and months. That can be very frustrating because we're burning money and we're not getting where we need to be. So if there are strategic things that can be done that motivate people to move faster at the pace the industry wants, then there's nothing more than for us to spend some industry sponsored study dollars to be able to kick off these collaborations. And as I had mentioned, one thing we're looking to do is how can we now create a pipeline of NIH and DoD awards to improve the clinical pilot pipeline for Sensen, do a lot of work with different universities and hospital systems in the area and just grow as a whole. But I think we've been very fortunate to have partners working with us to actively cut through the red tape and get us what we need. And that just incentivizes us to do more and more. So I think that would be a big one.
Alex, what you've worked with a lot of collaboration and especially with health systems. How do you think that benefits the whole community and medtech and especially?
Yeah, I think it's imperative because look, we are, as industry, for instance, I mean, we rely on each other, right? So we're working with healthcare facilities. They're working with us. We're working with universities because we're trying to draw on all these experience because hey, we might need this transformative technology from a U of A, an ASU, a Grand Canyon University, Northern Arizona University. What are they coming up with that we can use to ultimately help patients? And for us, specifically, we're developing medical device technology, typically that physicians are using. And so we need a way to collaborate with healthcare to be able to go in and observe cases, be in that in-use environment and figure out, the challenge always comes down to, a lot of times the intellectual property and contractual agreement. And, if we can get through that red tape and figure out how to collaborate and put that patient first, I think that's where, when we can figure out, okay, how are we going to innovate and help these people and immerse ourselves in this environment together in these problems, it can be very beneficial. So again, I think collaboration is essential.
It's an old IP bugaboo, always in the way. One of the questions in the chat for the earlier group was one that didn't get addressed, and that's AI and how are we integrating AI into all the things we're doing, and everybody is doing it. Ayushi, what do you think about that?
So we're a company that's taking it one step at a time. I think AI in clinical use has, from what our experience is, has to tie back to the value add for the physicians. And it has to, in some ways, not be a black box, because why would a clinician trust and make a decision if they don't fully understand or trust the data coming out of that system? So the stepwise approach we're hoping to take is, let's first embed our product in the system, have the doctors earn their trust and credibility. And then once they're comfortable with that unit, build the algorithms on top of it, and then take a stepwise approach where they feel comfortable using any assessment that comes out of it. AI can be easy to deploy, but hard to adopt, as we've seen. So I think for us, it's important to quality control it, because these physicians make life or death decisions. So that's how we're looking at it, at least at Sensen.
Well, I just noticed we are right at time, so we're going to have to stop our conversation for now so that Tammy can close up today. But we really appreciate you all joining us and appreciate all the people who stayed online to hear this panel discussion. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Tammy for closing remarks. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you.